Foreign governments as president, report finds House Democrats released evidence that he took in at least $7.8 million from foreign entities while in office, engaging in the kind of conduct the GOP is grasping to pin on President Biden. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. The reason I'm covering this story is because we have the 2024 presidential election right around the corner. The stakes are very high, and it's a historic election. We have the oldest U.S. president in history going up in a rematch against the former president, who is now being charged with insurrection, stealing votes, money laundering, been convicted of assaulting women in a way that I can't even say on YouTube. It's going to be a bloodbath, and this year should be one for the history books. But I want to keep this channel fair and balanced. If you know me, you know where I stand on President Trump. But I just recently released a video this day talking about Biden fumbling the immigration crisis happening at the southern border. So let's delve into this big news related to Trump, who has so much news about him, you could create a whole channel just about his antics. This was written for the New York Times, published on January 4th, 2024, written by Luke Broadwater. Donald J. Trump's businesses received at least $7.8 million from 20 foreign governments during his presidency, according to new documents released by House Democrats on Thursday that show how much he received from overseas transactions while he was in the White House, most of it from China. Ain't that ironic? The transactions, detailed in a 156-page report called White House for Sale that was produced by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, offer concrete evidence that the former president engaged in the kind of conduct that House Republicans have labored so far unsuccessfully to prove that President Biden did, as they work to build an impeachment case against him. On my channel, I haven't spoken about the Hunter Biden laptop or anything like that, but we all know that's just, in the words of Joe Biden, malarkey. Now, for anybody who's going to come for me and say, Simon, you're a Democrat, I'm your worst nightmare. I'm a communist, anarchist, globalist. Boo. No, I am not a Democrat. I am not on the Democrats' payroll or anything like that. I don't have any love for Biden at all. And honestly, if I was in the U.S., I would vote for Cornel West. That's who gets my endorsement. But I'll just say this. We have to point out that Trump and Biden are miles and miles apart. When we talk about who do we want the president to be in the U.S., I do not want a person convicted of assaulting women in a way that I can't even say on YouTube to sit in the Oval Office, because he is not a role model to our children. I don't want a man who talks about assaulting women in a way that I couldn't even say on YouTube to be in the Oval Office. I don't want a man who sold our country to China being in the Oval Office. I don't want a man who loses elections, lies and says that he did win the election, and then stormed the Capitol with a mob of white supremacists. No, that is totally different than Biden. Biden has a whole sort of problems. Biden is the status quo of how America has functioned. But the alternative, that blatant, vile fascism that Trump is bringing with him, no. That's got to go. All right, I'm going to continue here. Using documents produced through a court fight, the report describes how foreign governments and their controlled entities, including a top U.S. adversary, interacted with Trump businesses while he was president. They paid millions to the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C., Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue in New York, and Trump World Tower at 845 United Nations Plaza in New York. The Constitution prohibits federal office holders from accepting money, payments, or gifts of any kind whatever from foreign governments and monarchs unless they obtain the consent of Congress to do so. The report notes that Mr. Trump never went to Congress to seek consent. I know some Trump supporters will say, oh, those are his businesses and those are his entities that he owns, and they are separate from him. They might be corporations, they might be shell companies, they might be something that is in Ivanka's name or one of his kids' names or something like that. The point is that money goes back to him. And this is why it's stupid for people to say, we need a businessman in office. We need to run the government like a business. A businessman will be able to better maintain the U.S. government and that sort of stuff. Business people are in it to make money. The government should not be a money-making service. Being in government should not be something that you do to get rich. We know that's how it should be in an ideal world. So saying that a businessman is the best way to run America, we've had that experiment with Trump. And how did that go? Our debt got even higher. This man was accepting accepting money from China behind our backs and that sort of stuff. No, having a businessman in office is not the way to do it. A businessman's main concern is to line his profits, not be selfless. All right, so House Democrats highlighted the transactions on Thursday as a counterweight to Republicans' impeachment inquiry into Mr. Biden, which has sought to tie him to international business deals by his son Hunter Biden before his father became president in a bid to prove corruption or influence peddling. They have so far failed to show that President Biden was enriched in any way by any of those transactions. By elevating his personal financial interest and the policy priorities of corrupt foreign powers over the American public interest, former President Trump violated both the clear commands of the Constitution and the careful precedent set and observed by every previous commander-in-chief. Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland, the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, wrote in a foreword to the report, among the countries patronizing Mr. Trump's properties, China made the largest total payment, $5.5 million, to its business interests, the report found. Those payments included millions of dollars from China's embassy in the United States, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, and the Hainan Airlines Holding Company. Saudi Arabia was the second largest spender, shelling out more than $615,000 at the Trump World Tower and Trump International Hotel. Ain't that crazy, man? The Chinese are getting bottle service in Saudi Arabia is out there on the dance floor. How are the Saudis gonna get outspent by China? Yes, I know, China is a much bigger nation, much bigger economy and that sort of thing, but come on, the Saudis are known for popping bottles and busting it open on yachts, all sorts of stuff. What are they doing here? How did China spend so much more than the Saudis? 5.5 million to 6.5, man. do those even got leathers? I'm jumping in here. All right, so Eric Trump, the former president's son, has long insisted that foreign interests did not influence his father's presidency and that any profit the company earned on the hotel stay was returned to the federal government through a voluntary annual payment to the Treasury Department. So Eric Trump is saying here that the foreign interests didn't influence his father. Basically, the money ended up going back to the government and it never went in Trump's pockets. But Mr. Raskin noted on Thursday that donating profits to the Treasury falls short of the constitutional requirements placed on a president. On Thursday, Eric Trump said in an email that the Chinese bank mentioned in the report had signed a 20-year lease at the Trump Tower in 2008, almost a decade before his father took office, and he argued it was clear that the former president had not allowed his personal business incentives to drive his official actions. That narrative is insane, Eric Trump said of the Democrats' report. He added that there is no president in United States history who was tougher on China than Donald Trump, citing the substantial tariffs the former president imposed on the country's goods and services. He also said that the Trump organization did not have the ability or viability to stop someone from booking through third parties at the hotel. So I'll just say this. Somebody's going to make the argument that, okay, Trump was very hard on China. He started the whole trade war and stuff like that, and that made prices go up in the U.S. briefly during that time of his presidency. I think it was like 2018 or something like that. But yeah, that didn't affect Trump. Trump, number one, is a very wealthy man. So even if prices go up and stuff like that, that's not going to bother him. And it definitely doesn't bother him if the Chinese are still spending money at his hotels to peddle influence to him. Maybe he was starting the trade war so that they could come and go to his hotels and try to talk to him. They're going to go to Mar-a-Lago. They're going to go to the Trump resort spas and whatever, trying to get to him through back channels and that sort of stuff. That might sound conspiratorial, but once again, the point is this. What happens to average Americans doesn't bother Donald Trump. Trump did not care that hundreds of people are now in federal prison because they followed his stupid words to invade the Capitol. Trump did not care that the contractors he hired to help him with his rallies or build his casinos did not get paid. Trump doesn't care about normal people. So, of course, he's going to start a trade war with China and then tell his base, see, I told you I'm tough on China. Meanwhile, he's getting, backdoored through China. Continuing here. House Republicans also dismissed the revelations, arguing that there was nothing wrong with Mr. Trump receiving revenue from foreign governments while he was president, but that Mr. Biden's family business was corrupt. Former President Trump has legitimate businesses, but the Bidens do not. Representative James R. Comer, Republican of Kentucky and the chairman of the Oversight Panel, said in a statement on Thursday. He charged that the Bidens had made more than 3 times as much as the new records show. Mr. Trump had from foreign governments by cashing in on the Biden name, adding that no goods or services were provided other than access to Joe Biden and the Biden network. Okay, the Democrats' report acknowledges its own limitations. Democrats fought aggressively through years of litigation to gain access to only a portion of Mr. Trump's business records. After they won court rulings, Mazars USA, the longtime accounting firm for Mr. Trump that cut ties with him and his family business, began in 2022 turning over documents related to his financial dealings. The development came after Mazars said it could no longer stand behind a decade of annual financial statements it had prepared for the Trump organization. But once Republicans won control of Congress, they dropped the effort to force Mazars to continue with its production of documents about Mr. Trump's business dealings. Mr. Comer made clear he had abandoned any investigation into the former president's financial dealings and was instead focusing on whether Mr. Biden and members of his family were involved in an influence peddling scheme. See, the problem with Trump is that he's poisoned the well so much that because the Republicans are so adamant about protecting their guy who can galvanize the base and get people out to vote and get people turned up online and excited about the Republicans despite their dwindling numbers, is because Trump is so toxic to the entire process. And now everybody has to point at the others to defend their guy. So the Republicans have to stand behind this obviously corrupt man who is wild and dangerous. So they have to point at Biden and say, well, he's corrupt too. He's dangerous too. He takes money from Ukraine or whatever, because their guy is so obviously corrupt and so obviously selfish and that sort of stuff. So Trump has sort of like poisoned the whole atmosphere. And honestly, things won't be better until he passes on to another realm or to another dimension, and we can finally have more of the status quo that we can deal with. But honestly, I think it will never be the same. After Trump leaves, somebody else will pick up that mantle and be that radical, semi-populist, fascist, right-wing leader who can galvanize people and scare people to the polls and that sort of stuff. So I think Trump has been such a detriment, and him winning in 2016 has forever changed American politics in a negative way. Going to continue here. Still, Democrats say they received key material before the investigation was shut down. Critically, even this subset of documents reveals a stunning web of millions of dollars in payments made by foreign governments and their agents directly to Trump-owned businesses while President Trump was in the White House, the report states. These payments were made while these governments were promoting specific foreign policy goals with the Trump administration, and even at times with President Trump himself, and as they were requesting specific actions from the United States to advance their own national policy objectives. The report is the result of a multi-year investigation into Mr. Trump's receipt of payments from foreign-controlled entities while in office. The investigation began in 2016 under the leadership of Representative Elijah E. Cummings, Democrat of Maryland, who died in 2019. It noted that Mr. Trump sometimes bragged about the wealth that foreign governments had provided him, including at a campaign rally in 2015, when he suggested that his personal financial incentives might influence his dealings with another government. Trump said, okay, Saudi Arabia, I get along great with all of them. The report quotes him saying, they buy apartments from me. They spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much. That sounds horrible. Number one, because Saudi Arabia is a regime that's totalitarian and very wicked to its people. I did a live stream last year talking about how Saudi Arabia is slaughtering people at its border who are refugees coming from Ethiopia and Somalia and that sort of stuff. Plus, Saudi Arabia is a regime that treats women very badly in their nation, along with other religious and ethnic minorities. So, yeah, Saudi Arabia is not the type of place that we should just like very well because they spend millions of dollars at his hotels. Going to continue here. The report urges Congress to consider adopting new disclosure rules to help the legislative branch obtain information for proper oversight. It also recommends a more formal procedure for presidents and other officials to seek Congress's permission when they receive and want to retain wealth from other countries. And that's the end of the article. Very interesting information. Glad that this all came out right here. So I think this is absolutely clear for anybody who did not believe it at first, but yeah, Trump is corrupt, and he's blatantly corrupt in a way that only third world dictators are like. After traveling the world in many different places, one of the common refrains that people have when you ask them about politics is that nobody likes their president. And in a lot of other countries, the stuff that Trump is doing or accused of doing is something that other presidents do blatantly and openly. Many of my students are in Peru, and in Peru, every single one of their presidents has ended up in jail for stuff like this. I would say that Trump deserves the same thing. He deserves to be punished for one, trying to overthrow the government, because that was absolutely not cool, just to say it the least, and also this blatant corruption that happened in front of our own eyes. And we should be embarrassed that that ever happened, and we should move on by electing Cornel West for president. My name is Simon Hill. Thank you for watching. Peace.